How y'all doing? This is Kuya David, and welcome to Off Page, a poetry vlog presented by one poet, one line. And today we're gonna talk about the IWPS 2014 Slam, which occurred around October of 2014 in Phoenix, Arizona. And it was presented through the PSI YouTube channel, which is the Poetry Slam Incorporated YouTube channel, which is really the only way I found out about this. Otherwise, I would never have known. IWPS, of course, standing for Individual World Poetry Slam. And we're gonna talk about the last round because it's a lot of poetry to go through, you know? Round 1 was 12 poets, and then round 2 went down to 8 poets, and round 3, the final round, which we're gonna talk about today, was 4 poets. So here's a review of the 4 poets. And I really suggest for you guys to watch them either during or before or after, just eventually you guys watch it. So the first poet we'll review is Hanif Abdurraqib's 3rd round. So his round was a story piece, which I love. I love story pieces. His takes place at some house party, and him and his friends are talking about music, and all of a sudden some drunk chick arrives and says, "Hey, did you guys know that Whitney Houston died?" Oh. And the whole piece was about realizing someone died, someone that whose work you celebrated, and celebrating their life's work through listening and recollecting on their art, on their works. All right, so he has a couple of dope lines that go into about why they celebrate her life. He starts it off with we are the war generation.
The only way we know how to bury our own is with blood or sex or sweat or anything pouring from a body to signify that we were here.
It's this dope existentialist piece. When we die, it's like we want to be remembered. Kind of like in Kendrick Lamar's Sing About Me hook, where he goes, when the lights shut off and it's my turn to settle down, my main concern is promise that you will sing about me, because we all want to be remembered. And the piece of his is like a very sweet story about how the party kind of gave room to celebrate her life, and it was a really unique way of mourning, celebrating, and acknowledging the life's achievement of one person. It's a very strong piece. He deserved to be in the 3rd round for sure. It wasn't much of a crazy ride. It was pretty mellow mood-wise, and there weren't any big twists in the story. It was very straightforward and a short, sweet, somber story. Only a couple of hard lines, but it's the overall narrative that he's really trying to highlight. It's not necessarily about standout stanzas or standout, like little schemes or anything. It's really about the overall arcing theme of celebrating life and death, and remembering someone and their spirit. It's a good story, okay poetry, not too technical, but it's easily digestible. The judges scored it 27.4 out of what I assume is 30, so I gave it an 8.0 out of 10. Alright, so next poet that performed was Desiree De La Giacomo. I really hope I'm saying these names right. Out the gate, she just comes out swinging with really high energy. The crowd is already gassing, so it's pretty dope. And she starts off the first half of the piece really strong. I mean, it kind of sets off with the line, My father dropped
out of high school. I was the high school.
She goes into this really dope metaphor scheme about like her life or herself being the high school, and the focus was her father and how their bad relationship affected her mental outlook as she speaks to her therapist. The whole time she's saying Sharon, you Sharon, da 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 Sharon. She's talking to her therapist Sharon, and she talks to her about her father, how her father was the high school bully, how her father was the delinquent one in her high school. And she has these really cool metaphors and these really scathing criticisms about her dad. She has this line that goes,
he is a chainsaw in the forest of my bones.
That was crazy. That was crazy.
Flames, boy. Flames. And she had another one, which I loved, as she started to go deeper into the high school metaphor, talking about like detention room and a real flaming ass line was
Nobody wants to develop my negatives in their dark room, sharing.
God damn, boy! Woo! Fire. So she so around the middle of her piece, she starts deviating away from the whole high school and father thing, and then she starts going in all types of different tangents. She starts going into a story about her ex-lover, and then she goes into how her brother was in prison for a while, and it's just sad. I'm sad. This is sad shit. I'm experiencing sadness. I wish I could stop being sad, but I'm stuck in this sad route. Sad life. The first half was flames. I mean, like the whole metaphor scheme of the high school and the father, that was fire. And those scathing ass lines, flames. And then the piece starts out really strong, and then all of a sudden, as it goes into these tangents, like the overall theme kind of starts dissipating more and more broad until just general sadness, which I thought if she held closer to her original theme, or if she transitioned better out to these other pieces, then maybe that would have made the piece stronger. But towards the end, it kind of lost momentum. The judges gave it a 27.5 out of 30. I would judge it at 8.3 out of 10. The next piece is by Dennis Smith. Man, I really hope I'm saying these names right. Anyway, Dennis Smith, and this piece was my favorite of the whole round. This was like a really intense roller coaster of a ride piece. He's talking to a woman named Mrs. Thompson, and out the gate, he apologizes for ruining her marriage. He is the partner of her husband's gay adultery exploits. It went from 0 to 100 real quick. This piece is just this amazing roller coaster of very somber and soft and very honest apologies to Mrs. Thompson, contrasted by these really harsh, almost violent images that he paints, these very harsh scenes of reality that he participates in with the husband, but he also accents them with how he feels, and these really hard cutting lines like
Never seen a man scrub his face so hard. His skin red like the sin he's trying to exfoliate, but he never brushes his teeth. Can you taste the shame?
Bars, boy, bars. And furthermore, it's not just adultery. It's not just like this gay adultery that's so shocking, but specifically, he's getting paid for this, meaning maybe he's doing it out of necessity. So that is also like this very interesting angle and this very interesting insight as to why he feels sympathetic, apologetic, like he didn't want to do this, but he kind of had to, is what it seems like, because at one point he points out how disgusted he felt that he bought groceries. At the same time, it's not over the head, this is some sad shit, this is depressing shit. It's very well crafted because of the contrast of him apologizing to the wife and then him feeling disgusted and then resentful. It introduces and transitions into the next stanza about how he feels towards Mrs. Thompson. And this is all highlighted by each, stanza or each, component of the piece is first introduced by him saying, dear Mrs. Thompson, and then he'll go to dear Mrs. the bitch, which is the husband's perspective on how he sees the wife, and then he'll go into dear Mrs. Clueless and talks about the exploits that went underneath her nose, and he keeps calling back to the woman in different names as he brings us deeper and deeper and deeper into the darkness of this rabbit hole that he's building. He ends it with him confessing his love for Mrs. Thompson, like a sympathetic love that he found through his pain. Well done. I can't praise this piece enough. Really strong, and it's a roller coaster. So hang on tight when you watch this piece. Judges gave it a 27.8 out of 30. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. And lastly, Miss Porsha O. And she spits a piece that I think a lot of people can relate with. She talks about how it's the voice and her language and how that gets projected onto these ideas of pre-labeling of what she's supposed to sound like, of how she's supposed to talk, about how she's supposed to behave, which I thought was very brilliant. I mean, I have black friends who complain like when they talk a certain way, people will be like, oh, why are you trying to sound white? So Porsha, highlighting the way that she talks and mirroring that or attributing that to like how like these different labels that people are putting on her was really brilliant. She starts it off with criticisms of her poetry and transitions about how women aren't supposed to talk like that. So it's at first a crit about who is talking, who is doing the talking, which is her, a woman. She highlights it with the line, I was born
with the pussy, and pussies were never meant to speak, they were meant to purr. They say, I got a tongue born ratchet.
Hold up! You gonna get this work!
So off the gate, she's handling gender roles, but it's not necessarily, oh, it's because I'm a woman. No, it's because of the way she talks. She refers it back to, always going back to her voice or some characteristic about the way she talks. And then she goes into classist issues about how her diction is called ratchet, and that's not how proper ladies are supposed to speak. But her message, despite like however people interpret her diction, her vernacular, is still strong words coming from an intelligent mind. And don't let her specific way of talking like blind you from the fact that she's still saying some real things. And then she goes into the swing of her voice, which is an analogy of her being black. Like, oh, why do you talk like this and why not talk like that? Again, I like how she transitions from each different label that people are trying to prejudge her with, her voice being the overarching subject of all these labels is really cleverly done. And then she summarizes it with I
sound too stupid, too poor, too black, too woman, too Charles Ramsey on Fox News.
Let me work! Please let me work!
Like, it's just a really brilliant angle to use the voice as like the umbrella of all these labels and prejudgments that people attribute to her. Like, really, really clever. A real dope message, a really brilliant angle. Not a lot of big moments, but a consistently strong delivery and strong presence throughout. The judges gave it a 28.1 and I gave it a 9.0. All right, so that was a review of the final round of the IPWS 2014 Slam. You guys should definitely check out each and every one of those. And yeah, if you agree, disagree, or further comments about how you felt about the piece, feel free to comment below or just comment on the individual videos themselves. All right, this is Kuya David, Off-Page Poetry Vlog, One Poet, One Line. Thank you very much.
We got all night.